Hi there. In this video, I'll add some HTML5 tags to index.html, and I'll also take a look at links and nav bars. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Notepad, and I'll open up index.html. So that's in Documents, Websites, WSDI. I have to switch this to All Files so I can see HTML files, and I'll double click on that. Now, the first tag I'm going to add is just a very generic tag to set a section apart from other sections. So under the body here, I'm going to throw this whole thing in a div. So that's just a very generic section, and just before the body closes, I'm going to throw a closed div in there. Now, this is our first look at attributes, but these tags can contain a little bit more information about the tag, and those are known as attributes. And attributes are expressed as name-value pairs. So the name of the attribute and then the value of the attribute. And generally we have a space, and we've got to put that inside of the brackets. So I click after V for div and I hit space and I type in ID. So ID is one of the attributes that's allowed for div. I'll type in equals, and then in quotes, so we always have the value in quotes, and I'm going to call this thing page. You could call it whatever you like. A very common name is container for this type of a div as well. So if I file save and refresh this in the browser, you'll see that nothing really changes, but now we can grab a hold of that section with CSS. Now I'm going to add another section, and this is simply going to be a header. So I type in header, and I'll close that header. Again, I always close my tags as soon as I open them. Inside of header, I'm going to add another section called nav. So that's all of the navigation will be in there. I'm also going to add a footer. So right before the end of the div, I'm going to put in a footer. And I'm going to close that. And in my footer, I'm going to add a little bit of information here. I'm going to say in a paragraph, site last updated by Marcus at Motorama.net. And eventually I'll make that a live link so that when people click on it, it fires up an email client with a compose message all set to go. So in this nav, I'm going to have all of the documents that I can navigate to in this website. So generally you'll have a contact page, you might have a gallery of all of your work, you'll probably have a store. So I'm going to add all of that stuff. So I'll have a UL and a close UL, and this is very common that we have all of our site navigation inside of an unordered list. And then I'm going to put my list items in line here. So just close that line there. So I'll say about me, and I'm just hitting end on my keyboard to get to the end of the line. Say resume, which will be this document. Say maybe past clients. And shop, we should always sell something, right? And a contact, which will include a contact form or something like that. So that's inside of our nav. Now I'm going to add one more section here, and this is also an HTML5 code, and that's basically everything after the header. I want it to be inside of something called a section. So that's just plain old section. And I'll close that section right before the footer. Whoops, that should be a, oh yeah, there we go. Right before the open footer section, like that. Now, for that page div, I gave it the ID page. Now, the thing is with IDs, if you use an ID for an element, and I could ID any of these, I could ID header or nav or UL, there should only be one element with the same ID name. However, this section, I'm going to add something called a class, and this is the opposite. It allows us to grab a hold of that name that we use, but we can have multiple sections or IDs, multiple elements is the best way to put that, with the same class. So we use the ID when we only want one thing on a page, and we can explicitly identify that one element. Class, if we have several elements that look the same, we use a class. So I'm going to say class equals main. So again, that's an attribute, name value pair, value in quotes. So now I'll choose File Save, and I'll open this in my browser. So I can go to my File Explorer here, and I'll go to Documents, Websites, WSTI, Index. Now this Marcus's resume, this should also be part of the header. This is the H1, this is the title of the document. I'm going to put that in the header as well before the nav. So I'll quickly fix that. So I'll cut that, and I'll paste it before the nav. All right. File save. Switch my browser, refresh. I'm just going to make this poke out a bit so it's easier to navigate to. There we go. There we go. So that looks good to me. So we have the title of the document in an H1, as well as, oh, we don't have a title here. We'll add the title. We have a nav. All of this is inside of a header. The whole arrangement's inside of a page. We have a section, which is the main section, and then we have a footer here. Now, that's all of the HTML5 tags that I want to show you now, but let's take a look at these links. So the simplest one to look at is this one here, the email link, and then we'll get into linking to another document in the website, and then we'll look at an absolute reference to a website outside of this website. So the three types of links. There's actually a fourth one that's not used very much, a jump link. So I'm going to switch back to my notepad here. And for this email address, basically the way you express a link is simply the A tag, like that. So I'm going to save that, and I'll refresh. So you see it doesn't actually do anything yet. We need an attribute for it to do something. So let me just double check that I refreshed that correctly. Yep. So that the attribute for this tag is definitely required. And for an email link, it's href, which means hypertext reference equals, and then a mail to, all one word, colon, the email address. So I'm just going to copy this email address so I don't have to type it twice. And I'll add that attribute in the anchor tag. So again, we need a space, and then the attribute is href. That's the name of the attribute. And then it equals, and then it quotes, mail to, colon, and then I'm just pasting my email address in there. So now when I choose File Save, and I refresh, oops, not that one. And then I refresh, notice it gets a blue underline, and when you mouse over it, you get the little pointing hand, and in the status bar of the browser it shows you where that link goes. And now I have Outlook configured on my computer, so if I click on this, it'll fire up Outlook again, because the email client is set up, installed, and configured on my computer, and a compose message will open up inside of Outlook with this email address in the to field. So it does three things for me. So I click on that. And you see it's opened up Outlook. It's a new message. And it's put the email address in the to field. So I can just quickly type in my subject, the body, and hit send. So that's this, I'm just going to say no. That's the simplest form of a link for demonstration purposes. I'm going to quickly get a little bit more complex. So the next one, I want to link to an existing document within the website. So I need that document so we can actually see it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, actually what I'll do is I'll just quickly create a brand new HTML document. So I'll be able to at least see that I'm navigating somewhere. And what I'll do for that document is I'll just copy and paste basically the top portion of index.html. So I'm just going to grab all of this all the way down to section class main. I'll just copy that. And then I'm going to open up Notepad again because I want this document to remain. If I open up Notepad again, it'll be a second instance of the application with a blank document in it. So I'm going to go edit paste. And for the, I'm just going to quickly add a title. And I'm going to say about us. So for each one, I'll also use about us. for the section class main, I'll say content will go here. And I'll just copy the rest of that stuff from the bottom. Again, I did all of that just so that we have something we can navigate to. And I'm going to quickly save this as about us.html. So file, save. Again, it's going to go into document websites WSDI. Defaults to the last place you saved, by the way. And I'm going to call this about us. Now, commonly, if you have two words in a file name, you want to separate them with a dash. You can also use an underscore. I like a dash better because it's easier to see. HTML. And for type, I'm going to say all files, so it doesn't put a .txt at the end. So again, about us.html, and I'll choose save. So I'm just going to switch back to index.html and then create the link to this about us.html. So I've got Notepad here. There's index. I'm going to click on that. Control home will get us to the top, but I'll go the long way. I'm just going to give myself a new line. 2 new lines for my anchor tag. Again, anchor tag is for a link. And then for that A, again, we need that we need that attribute. So it's href equals, always for links, href equals, and then in quotes. And in quotes, it's if you want to navigate to another document in your website, you just type in the document name. So that's just about us. .html. Now that document can be anything. In this situation, it's HTML file. You're rest assured that people will be able to read HTML files on their computers because they have a browser. They're looking at this HTML file. But as long as you know what type of software a user has installed on their computer, you can use that file type. So for example, if you wanted to share a music file, an MP3, you could put the MP3 here. So for example, it would be mysong.mp3, and they would actually download that MP3 when they click on this link. In this situation, we'll just open it in the browser because the browser is the associated software for HTML files. So I'm going to choose File, Save. And I'll go back to my index.html there, and I'll refresh. And you see I get that blue underlined link there. If I click on this, it's now opening About Us. Now we probably want to add another one to go back to resume so we can switch back. So I'm going to quickly go back to, this is a bit of a review, back to About Us. And for resume, I'm going to add a link to go back to index.html. So it's a href equals, and then index.html. Oh, don't forget your close quote. Very common mistake. I always do that. So I can choose File, Save. Go back here, refresh, resume, about me, resume, about me, resume. So that's the second type of link. The third type is an absolute reference to for example, a website. So what I'm going to do is, since this is our resume here, and we've got education and certificates, I'm just going to quickly add an education item here that links back to Langara College. So I'm going to add my own, I'll say Internet Publishing Certificate, Langara College. You can add a link to Langara College for the actual name of this program. So I'm going to go back down to index at the bottom here. Right at the top of this list, I'm going to give myself a paragraph. And I'm going to say Langara College, break, and I'll say Internet Publishing Certificate. And I want to make that bold. Bold, by the way, is actually properly expressed as strong. I used B previously, but strong is actually more correct. And again, emphasis. For italics. And then I'll add my link. You can add it in line if you like. Now this one, the attribute is still href. Again, hypertext reference equals, and then in quotes. Now this time, if you have an absolute reference, that is points to a document outside of this site. We can use it for documents inside the site as well, but if it's outside of the site, it absolutely needs the HTTP ://, and then we can just say langara.ca. Now there's a second attribute that is useful if you're sending users to another website. If you're sending users to another website, you want your website to remain open as a resource so they don't have to use the back button. Basically, this will open a second browser tab. So that attribute is target equals, and then in quotes, underscore blank. So that'll open up a new browser, either window or tab, depending on the browser. And I'll choose File Save. And I'll hit refresh. So now we have our third type of link. We have a mail to link. We have a bolded link that goes to an external site, and then we have a link that goes to another document or opens another document in this site. So let me just indicate what, or demonstrate what this link does. I'll click on that, and there we go. We've got a brand new tab, index.html is still open there, and I can close that, and we still have that document open back there. Now I'm just going to quickly show you one more thing with links. So I want these to look like links because I need to style them as links later on, but I don't have a document for them to open yet. So what I'm going to do is put in a placeholder attribute, or I should say value for an attribute, so that they still look like links, they still act like links, but nothing happens when you click on them because we don't have a document for them to go to yet. So I'm going to go click on index, and I'm going to add ahref equals, and in the quotes I'm just going to type in Shift 3, the pound symbol. And close that A. So these will look like links, but they won't actually go anywhere. What that pound symbol means is this document. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. You just want to type that out, though, until you're sure you have a clear understanding of the syntax. And I'm just going to copy and paste that as well. So as you're learning to code, don't ever copy and paste anything. Type it out. You'll make mistakes. You'll have to find those mistakes, and you'll learn all about those mistakes. So I'm going to choose File Save. And I'll refresh. And you see these all look like links. They don't actually go anywhere, but they look like links. They have the underline, you mouse over them, and you get the little pointing hand. Once you click on one of them, again, this means you visited that link, so they go purple. So that was adding some HTML5 tags, again, specifically header, nav, footer, section. We added a navigation bar inside of an unordered list as list items. We added some attributes, so the ID attribute, the class attribute, the href attribute, and we created a second document to navigate to, as well as we looked at the 3 different types of links. And that's pretty much it for today. Thanks so much for watching.